ॐ शन्नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ ब्रह्मविदाप्नोति परम् तदेशाभ्युक्ता सत्यं ज्ञानमनन्तं ब्रह्म यो वेदनिहितं गुहायां परमे व्योमन् सोऽश्नुते सर्वान् कामान् सः ब्रह्मणा विपश्चितेति. So, पदार्थानां पदानां विशेषण भावः and पदार्थानां पदानां समानाधिकरण्यं पदार्थानां विशेषण-विशेष्य भावः भावसम्बन्धः. We have seen up till now. Very technical. The next whole section will be, because in the definition of Brahman, it has to be done extremely carefully. And why does it have to be done carefully? Because of the possibility of mix-up. And in fact, we are trying to remove the mix-up. And because there is mix-up, it needs a lot of care. And at times it can appear like it is a hair-splitting distinction. And this is where there is need for some patience and perseverance to just ride the tide with this whole portion of the definition, and admire how Bhashyakara does things with so much precision that there is no room for doubt, there is no room for error, there is no room for any kind of mistake, which is what we want in this kind of a discussion. Because this Brahman, as it was said earlier, Anirdharita Swarupa, a Brahman who has just been mentioned, whose nature is not defined. Brahman of unascertained nature, Brahman of undefined nature. And that's why there is reason to go very carefully into understanding Brahman, because otherwise we make the mistake of layering this Brahman with our own subjectivity. Brahman is like this because I think that it is like this. Why do you think it is like this? Because I am like this. This is how there could be a lot of confusion. And I talked about last time we covered a lot of ground, and I talked about how in the Visheshana there need not be, but there could be some place for subjectivity. There could be some entry of subjectivity. Like wonderful, movie. And somebody who went to the movie said, "This is a wonderful movie." Who went? A teenager. Okay. And then somebody else goes and says, "Oh, it is just a terrible movie." So you can imagine that how this definition of the description of what the movie was to different people at different times in different places changes based on one's own raga, dvesha, etc. And so, in the Visheshana, wonderful, great, fantastic, terrible, horrible, there is subjectivity. All those are Visheshanas, adjectives. In those adjectives, there is subjectivity because what is great, what is wonderful, what is terrible depends upon the infrastructure of the speaker, the writer, whatever it is. But Lakshana here, for there to be subjectivity, is very, very difficult because here it is a definition of what is. Visheshana can also be a definition of, a description of what is. If I said blue lily, as Adi Shankara is going to go into this example now, blue lily, then it is a mere description. There is no, there is no this thing, subjectivity there. It is a lily and it happens to be blue in color. Simple. It is lily and it is blue. It's not that, I don't want it to be red and that's why it is blue. Not like that. It just happens to be blue and this is more of a description. But then Visheshanas can also be subjective. Whereas when we talk about Lakshana, it is more revealing an object. It has more of a revelatory, there is a revelatory sambandha, a revealed sambandha between the shabdas, the words that reveal, and between the substantive, that which is to be revealed. So here it is very difficult, if not impossible, for subjectivity to creep in. Why? Simply because we are describing things as they are. So if I said that which accommodates is space, it's a definition. Avakasha pradatra, avakasha pradata, akashaha. Avakasha pradatra, akashaha, if I were to say, then this is a definition that nobody can refute. That which accommodates is space. Can anybody refute that? No. Why? Because it is Vastu Tantram. Vastu Tantram means it is based on the Vastu that is to be revealed. The knowledge that is derived from the usage of Lakshana is here. What is that? It is Vastu Tantram. It does not depend on the subject. I want space to be accommodative, therefore I'm calling space to be accommodative. No, it does not depend on the subject I, who is subject to all kinds of subjectivity, but it depends on the object to be known. That's why jnana, knowledge, is vastu tantram. Vastu tantram means what? Vastu Tantram means that it is centered on the object, not on the subject. So here the feelings of the subject, the ideologies of the subject, the notions of the subject, and the mood of the subject is not in the least bit relevant at all, because none of those aspects of the subject are used, none of those aspects are relevant for this knowledge. Why? Because the it is object based jnanam, not subject based jnanam. The knowledge of an object is as true as the object. This is very, very important to understand. It doesn't have anything to do with the subject. So, regardless of whether I like space or not, whether I like, what is that called? Whether I like the definition space is accommodative or not, I have to see the fact that there is that this is a fitting definition, whether I like it or not. It's because it doesn't depend on me, and this is how Vedanta uses words. The everyday words that are used in such a way that they reveal the knowledge by by defining it extremely specifically so that there is no room for anything else. And so it's a knowledge which is based not on the subject, but on that which is to be revealed. And here, of course, we know this, that which is to be revealed is the subject alone. But here, grammatically, we are talking subject object. So, this is what is Vastu Tantram Jnanam. Whereas, so Jnanam means knowledge. So, any knowledge, knowledge means we are talking of revealer and revealed. Knowledge is that which is revealed by definition. That which I discover, discover means through a revelation. So, that which is revealed, that which I discover, knowledge. Then it is called Vastu Tantram. And we find this even in the everyday vyapara use of all our sense organs, and we find this. If I hold, something in my hand, like, like a pot, I hold a pot in my hand, and what do I say? Please look at this wonderful mango. Can you oblige? No matter how much Shraddha you have in the Shastra, in the teacher, you cannot oblige and say, oh, yes, indeed, it is a wonderful mango. You can't do that. Unless, of course, we are talking of some kind of a dictatorial regime, and where the dictator has to be kept very happy by being surrounded by a bunch of yes men, because if they are no men, there will really be no men. Okay, off with their heads. This is what will happen. And so they have to be yes men even in order to be alive. So then they will say, yes, yes, sir, you are holding a wonderful mango. Enjoy it, sir. This is what they will say. And this is how all the dictatorial regimes function, by messing with the sanity. And how do they mess with the sanity? This is what it is, this is some kind of a subjective gaslighting, because your own idea of what is real is completely dismissed and torn asunder, and is replaced with a certain way you have to look at things. But that doesn't work in knowledge, really. Yes, you may agree, because of the fear of your life, you may agree, but then that doesn't work at all in a question like, of where we have to study something to understand what to understand what this is. We have to study this. And so Vastu Tantram Jnanam. So if you look at something, eyes are open, knowledge takes place. It does not depend on your handling of the eyes, not at all. If there is a pramana, a pair of eyes in this instance, or a pair of ears, nostrils, whatever it is, if there is a pramana, a means of knowledge, a way of picking up knowledge, and there is a prameya, something to be revealed, something to be known, knowledge will definitely take place. That is why you see things you do not like to see, like an accident. Who wants to see an accident? Nobody wants to see an accident. Nobody at all. In fact, that's a terrible sight. Who wants to look at that and see all this? Nobody wants to be in the middle of an accident. But yet, one sees an accident even while one is just taking a walk on the road, and you hear a terrible crunching sound of two cars trying to occupy the same place at the same time. You see a terrible accident. Why? The eyes were open, the ears were open, the mind was present, it picked it up. It just revealed what is. That's why you can't go through life only hearing nice things about yourself. You can't. All you're doing is walking from room to room. In the office, you're in the corridor, and suddenly you hear your name whispered. Naturally, you eavesdrop, and then somebody is saying some terrible things about you. How is that possible? Because the ears are open. This is what we mean by Vastu Tantram Jnanam. And because knowledge is, Vastuta, it's Swatantra. I mean, it is dependent upon itself. It is not dependent upon you. And the sooner we understand this, the better it is, because otherwise one is always confused. How does Shabda Pramana operate? And why do you say Brahman is Satyam Jnanam Anantam? Why can't you say it is Asat and Ajnanam and that which is subject to an end? It has Antavatvam. Why cannot you say that? Because it is not up to me. No, but it should be, because I really feel hopeless. And so my hopelessness, can it not also be transferred to Brahman? Because nothing works in my life and I am hopeless and I think everything is finite. And therefore I come to the conclusion Brahman is also finite. That does not make Brahman finite. Just because you think it is finite, it does not make Brahman finite at all. Why? We go back to the definition of Jnanam. Vastu tantram jnanam. Vastu means object. Tantram dependent upon. Knowledge is dependent upon the object, not about your mood, your feelings. Nothing comes in the way. That is why, regardless of your mood, you see things, you hear things you don't want to hear. You see things you don't want to see. You hear things that are unpleasant. All these things happen. And so, this is not in the hands of the pramata. That is why I say the knowledge of Brahman, self-knowledge, Brahma Vidya, is, is a jnanam without the pramata. The pramata is knocked off from the status of being a pramata, because this is a knowledge centered on the pramata, a knowledge in whose assimilation the pramata has no role practically, no role at all. This is just very, very fascinating. So, what is in my hands? you know, Karma. Karma is in your hands. So, everything else other than Jnanam is Karma Tantram. Karma Tantram is, it is based on your action, it is based on your agency. Karma Tantram means based on karma, based on your agency. So if you do something, then you can expect certain results, then you can be a certain way, then you can plan for something else. You catch the bus to go to a certain place. This is karma tantram. So karma tantram means you are the agent of the action, and this is what is the product of karma. All karma phala, all the things that you want to produce, all the things that you want to have, karma tantram. But then jnanam alone is vastu tantram. You understand the difference between karma tantram and vastu tantram? Karma tantram has agency, and wherever we are talking of a person's agency, along with the agency, the sense that I am an agent, pramata, Karta, bhokta, I am an agent. All this is in the nominative case, singular. So as long as that status is there, the subjectivity creeps in. So my agency, this is what I produce, this is how much I consume, this is what I want other people to consume, and it should be less than what is there for me. All this subjectivity comes in. And so here, Lakshana means here it has to be the revelation of this has to be 100% objective, number one. Second is Lakshana, since it's a grammatical ornament, it is a kind of an alankara in Sanskritam. So since it's a grammatical, it has a grammatical connotation, it follows certain rules. How it should be applied, where it should be applied, what kind of a Lakshana is this, etc. There are a few kinds of lakshanas and we'll go over those. And so this is very, very important for this to work. Lakshana also means it is dependent upon words. Since it's a grammatical alankara, it is based on vyakarana. And vyakarana means there should be words. It is based on shabda, words. And what kinds of words? Words of the Shruti, over which, you don't have authorship. You don't have authorship. These are words of the Shruti. Shruti Vakya, Shruti Shabda. Meaning, I have no role in the production of this knowledge. None whatsoever. And this is going to be mentioned a little later. Yato vacho nivartante apraapya manasa saha anandam brahmano vidvan na bibheti kutascha neti. The mind and the speech. Speech means your own speech, not the words of the Shruti here. Your own ideas about how to describe Brahman, how to talk about Brahman, along with the mind that does kalpana of Brahman, that imagines and tries to come up with some idea of what this Brahman is. And that's why the mind and the speech are the greatest of friends, great friends. The mind has the capacity to visualize. It moves from place to place. Sitting here, you can reach South Africa in a split second, and you can think about, you can be visiting so many sites there already. And then what? Then you can and then the speech is very important, because what does the speech do? The speech describes all that you saw, all that the mind objectified. The speech job is to be a scribe, like Ganesha, who wrote down the Mahabharata as Lord Vyasa was composing. Like that, the mind keeps on churning out ideas, and the speech describes. That's why everybody, loves to talk. Talk, 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 talk. Oh, but wait, I forgot to tell you this. Oh, you know what happened? This is what it is. There is a great need to be heard. And that's why there are so many avenues where you can talk about your life. Why do I need so many avenues? Because the significant other and all the people in the family are sick of hearing you. So that's why they don't want to. They don't want to. As soon as you start talking, they say they just hide in their rooms, or they suddenly come up with something that they really need to do. That's why there is Facebook. And then what else is there? Twitter. And you can share photos of what you had for lunch on Instagram. And then that's what it is for. Food photos. They are the most, they're the most popular. And then you can, and then If you want to share more, you can start a, what is that called, blog. And then there is also something called vlog, V-L-O-G, video blog. Okay. So where you can put small, small videos and everything. Why? Because this vak and the mind are the greatest friends. It's like a blind man walking, and on his shoulders is sitting a lame man who can see. Okay. And the two are just aligned in this way. The lame fellow says, lame fellow cannot walk, he needs to be carried. No crutches either. The blind man is the crutch for this fellow. And so the lame fellow says, what does he say? Turn left, wait, you're going to crash into this buffalo that is coming from the other side. We are right, turn left here. This is what the lame man says. And then the two are kind of aligned with each other because each is unable to function without the other. Each one is helpless without the other. So it is a kind of an uneasy truce, a utilitarian connection between the two. Greatest of friends, who walk, speech, and the mind. Then one day they said, we should do something famous and become famous. I'm tired of writing blogs. The mind said, I'm tired of just, spinning my own wheels and doing all kinds of things. And then what's the satisfaction in that? We should do something which everybody wants. What does everybody want? I know. Brahma. Everybody wants Brahman. And they announced to the place, the village where they were. We are going in search of Brahman and we are going to bring it back. Why it? Because it is Napunsakalinga. Okay, so it is neuter. And so we are going to bring it back. And the village people said, really? You're going after Brahman? Is that even possible? Oh, you must be so great. Other people just go after small things and you are going after the biggest Brahman. And then can we expect to see Brahman? Yes, we'll bring it back. What if it won't come? Oh, we'll drag it. We'll drag it with a noose around its neck. Don't worry, we are going to bring it back. So the village people made a big feast and then gave these two fellows a great farewell. Put tilak and did arati and said, Vijayi Bhava, become, only come back when you have Brahman. May you be victorious. Go forth, go and be victorious. Vijayi Bhava. And then what? Both of them went. Wherever they looked for, high and low, the mind could not catch hold of Brahman and put it in a box. And in fact, that's what the mind does. The mind, in a past life, perhaps it was some kind of a, what's it called? Some kind of a, trapper of animals or something like that. And so this is how it traps all kinds of things. It traps ideas, notions, categories. This is all the realm of the mind. And it looked high and low for Brahman. Neither could find Brahman nor could trap it. You have to find it as an object in order to trap it. And the speech said, well, my reputation is at stake. Are you any close? Is it there? Is it here? Look properly. you know. And the mind said, I'm sorry, I can't see it. I can't hear it. I can't think of it. And then speech said, how can I talk about it if you can't even visualize it? Then they both came back, heads hung in shame. And even though they made such a big deal about leaving and they had got this big farewell from the village, they just, sneaked into the village, in the dead of night. And and then what? Just sneaked into their room, into their houses, and just pretended to never have left. The next morning, and this is just a story, okay? So the next morning, under the peepal tree, People tree is not tree made of people. Okay, yeah, this is this is some kind of a ficus religiosa, some kind of a audambara tree. And then under this tree there was a sadhu teaching this very Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad. Om Brahmavida apnoti param. And they were both like, oh, Brahman is there? What? How? What is, who is this teaching? They all peeked out of their rooms, afraid to show themselves. They just peeked out of the room. What is happening in the village square? Oh, they heard Pramana, they heard Shabda, they heard revelation, they heard all these words which were very, very wonderful to them. And then what? Then the sadhu saw them peeking, the guru saw them peeking from the side. And the guru said, you are welcome to sit at the back of the class. Please come. Come and sit at the back of the class. Oh, really? Yeah. Not in front. Why not in front? Because you're not the agent of knowledge. You are not the owner of this knowledge. You're not you. You are the owner in the sense that this knowledge is, of course, you, but you are not someone who categorizes this knowledge, parcels this, packs this, ships this, and writes about this in a way to objectify this. No, you are not the agent of this knowledge. The mind is not an agent of this knowledge. Neither is speech. And since the mind is not an agent of this knowledge, knowledge takes place in the mind without the mind being a producer of this knowledge. And so that mind, which is in the form of a producer, has to be sent out, kicked out. And then the mind has to be invited back through the back door. In rich houses, mansions, and palaces, there is a service door, in the back. So the mind comes back through the back door, and it serves this knowledge by being, by purifying itself of raga and dvesha, by being present, by being available. And therefore it is said in a famous verse of the Amrita Bindu Upanishad, Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. The mind can be the cause of what? Bandha, bondage, and moksha. It's a moksha karaka. It can be the cause of moksha if it is, it can aid moksha if it is used properly. If it is kept in your service, if it serves you. But if it makes you serve its own ends, if it is steeped in the vicissitudes of raga and dvesha, then it is not going to serve you at all. So it can either be the cause of bondage or the cause of freedom. Bandhaya vishaya saktam. Bandhaya meaning that mind which is the cause of bondage. So for bondage to take place, how should the mind be? Vishaya saktam, hijacked by objects, meaning full of raga and dvesha, strong preferences and prejudices. Then for moksha, it should be vinirmuktam. Vinirmuktam means free of the hold of raga and dvesha. So this is the scenario, which is very beautifully described in the Taittiriya Upanishad, which goes out of its way to make it clear that you are not the agent of this knowledge. You are a mere servant here of this knowledge. Why? Because your job is to allow the mind to be free, calm, and not full of all kinds of notions, so that when the knowledge, that akhanda, in the form of the akhandakara vritti, in the form of the thought, the thought frame, the mental frame of oneness, when it is transmitted by the teacher, it just, it stays in the mind. It is not rejected, it is not spit out, it does not bypass the mind, it does not go somewhere else, and nor is it trapped by the mind trying to make something out of it. This is the reason for the specificity of the definition here, which we are about to enter. Because otherwise, the mind will start doing its own thing. The mind will start to analyze. Now, here it is spared of the analysis. Why? Because Bhashyakara is analyzing exactly how you would. So you can just relax and say. So even the most, what's the word for it? The most finicky reader and the most finicky analyst here is just, he has no other option except to keep quiet, except to shut up and listen. And so this is how, and then in this listening, something wonderful is happening. The mind, which is is being groomed to not be the agent of this knowledge, but to understand Brahman through this very, very involved method of Lakshana. And to understand Brahman from a standpoint, from an objective standpoint, which is itself a very big paradox. Why? Because who is understanding this Brahman? The one steeped in subjectivity. How are they understanding Brahman? They are understanding Brahman through words, which are also steeped in subjectivity and error too. Brahma, Brahmani, Brahmani. Meaning, how many Brahmans are there? One Brahman, two Brahmans, more than two Brahmans. This is the grammar. Atma, Atmanau, Atmanah. How many Atmas are there? One. So, why does it have dual and plural? Because this is the collective expression of ignorance. This is what it is in the language. That's what it is. So, the language itself is vitiated with subjectivity. The hearer, listener is vitiated with subjectivity, yet, miracle of miracle, Ashcharya, this knowledge takes place. That's why the Bhagavad Gita says, and the Kathopanishad before that says, Ashcharyavat pashyati kashtidenam, Ashcharyavat vadati kechid anyaha. Ashcharya means wonder. Every minute that one is discovering this, it's a great, fantastic, huge, big surprise. Ashcharyavad vadati kashchidenam, Ashcharyavat pashyati kashchidenam, Ashcharyavat vadati kechid anyaha, Ashcharyavat anya shrunoti. So the teacher is also in a state of wonder. I was always fascinated to see Pujya Swamiji teach, because sometimes any idea that would come in his mind or any kind of a joke, he would laugh the loudest. He was laughing with us, and then he was discovering all the connections along with us. It was just rediscovering, I should say. And it was just so fun to see that. And again, we find such stories. One of Pujya Swamiji's senior disciples in Chennai, Swami Paramarthananda, he thought, he at one lecture, he thought he has taught this very well, and some new connections have been made, and oh, am I not so clever? And he was just feeling on top of the world. Then he went back to his flat after the lecture, and Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. And then that's where the lecture was. Then he went back to his flat. And then, just out of curiosity, he just looked at his own notes when Pujya Swamiji had taught that particular text. And all the things he thought were original were already there. Ascharyavat pashyati. Ascharyo vakta. This is how, the Kathopanishad version of the same mantra. Ascharyo vakta. And the Ashcharya is the Jnata. Jnata means the knower of this knowledge. Is for them it is a wonder. For the teacher it is a wonder. And for the listener it is a wonder. For the one who shares with their friends, it is still a wonder. And then the Bhagavad Gita the Bhagavad Gita trolls the student. How? Lord Krishna trolls the student at the last line by saying, what is the greatest wonder of all? Shrutvapi naveda kashchit. Even after teaching, myriad ways, many times. Still, people don't know. That is the greatest wonder. Still, they don't follow. Still, they don't understand. This is the surprise of the surprise of the surprise. Greatest wonder. And so, this is why this particular bhashya takes this particular route. In this, through this route, there is what is happening on a subtle level. There is a kind of a manonasha happening. Manonasha now doesn't mean destruction of the mind, but destruction of this role which has been given to the mind. Aligned with the ahankara, the mind has carved for itself the role of being the agent of every piece of knowledge that it is able to encounter. And here is where the mind meets its match. Speech meets its match. Both of them want to go to sleep. And in fact, it's a good idea for both of them to go to sleep. The mind has gone to sleep. Speech has gone to sleep. Aha, finally, the knowledge can take place. And so, with these words, let us look at the Bhashya. Where did it go? 1 second. सत्याधिभिश्च
सत्यादिभिश्च
त्रिभिः
हृदिः
विशेषणैः
भेषणैः
विशेष्यमाणं ब्रह्म
भेष्यमाणं ब्रह्म
विशेष्यान्तरेभ्यः
विशेषान्तरेभ्यः
निर्धार्यते.
निर्धार्यते.
Yeah. So, त्रिभिः विशेषणैः. By these three visheshanas, visheshyam brahma nirdharyate. So this is the sentence we'll be looking at. Put on hold the word satyadhibhishcha, and then other things also you put on hold. Just look at visheshanaihi visheshyamanam brahma nirdharyate. Just look at the skeletal sentence for now. Then it will become easier to then fill in the blanks and put other things where needed. So Visheshanaihi, Visheshyam or Visheshyamanam, same thing. Let's take it Visheshyam for the sake of brevity. Visheshanaihi, Visheshyam Brahma Nirdharyate. Nirdharyate is ascertained, is described without a doubt. Ascertained means for sure. It's not, oh, one person says it's wonderful, another person says it's terrible. No, we are talking of the revelation of knowledge. Nirdharyate. Nishchayena dharyate. So it is ascertained. How is it ascertained? Visheshanaihi. By these words by these words which have an adjectival function grammatically. Okay, yeah. Grammatically, they are known as Visheshanas. And we saw earlier in the last two classes, what did we see? That these Visheshanas, can also function as Lakshanas. It depends on the context. This we have seen. Correct? So, Visheshanaihi nirdharyate Brahma. So, Brahman, with the help of these adjectival words, or rather, instead of saying adjectival words, words which have an adjectival function, Brahman is, nirdharyate. The meaning of the word Brahman is ascertained. What kind of Brahman? Visheshyam Brahma. Visheshyamanam Brahma. Same thing. Visheshyam Brahma is that Vivakshitam Brahma, the Brahman which is to be understood, to be relieved. Visheshyam means the Brahman that is qualified by these adjectives. Qualified by how many adjectives? Tribhihi visheshanaihi. By these three adjectives. Brahman, that is qualified by these three adjectives, Visheshyam Brahma Nirdharyate. Now, how do you so that means what? There are three adjectives, three Visheshanas are there. So that means what? These three Visheshanas are important. Like as he's going to talk about later, Mahat, Sugandhi, Utpalam. No, there's one more Vishay. Mahat, Mahat, Sugandhi, Neelam, Utpalam. Neelam, Mahat, Sugandhi, Utpalam. Anyway, you put it, they're all Visheshanas. So each one is important because it has a certain purpose. And then we saw one more example, Saguna Brahma Vishaya Manasa Vyaparaha Dhyanam. Correct? We saw that. And so, Saguna Brahma Vishaya Manasa Vyaparaha Dhyanam. Meditation is contemplation upon meditation is Dhyanam is contemplation upon Bhagavan in the form of a mantra. Here, each and every word is important. You cannot take out Vyapara. You cannot take out Sagunam. Otherwise, it will be Brahma Vishaya Manasa Vyapara. You cannot even take out Manasa. Every word has a particular reason for it being there. So here, Tribhi Visheshanaihi, all these three Visheshanas are important. What are the three Visheshanas? Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. These are the ones that are minimum required to reveal Brahman. And this is what he says. Now, Satyadhibhishcha Tribhi Visheshanaihi Visheshyam Brahma. Visheshyam Brahma Nirdharyate. So, Visheshyam Brahma means the Brahman that is to be described, that which is qualified. And Satyadhibhishcha means by the word Satya, etc. Etc. means Jnanam Anantam. These three Visheshanas describe Brahman or function as adjectival words. Words which have an adjectival function in order to reveal the nature of Brahman. And so this is really very, very interesting because Visheshyam means qualified. Now, if you say, let's say, because they are all in Samanadhikaranyam, we've seen this. Samanadhikaranyam means apposition. So they are all having the function of, they're having, what is that called, Samana Vibhaktikana, Bhinna Pravrittina, Ekasmin Vishaye Tatparyam. Samanadhikaranyam. This is the definition, Lakshana of Samanadhikaranyam. So they are having the same gender, number, and what else? The gender, number, and person, etc. They have the same one. Satyam, singular, neuter, vibhakti, same vibhakti, nominative. Jnanam, singular, neuter, nominative. Anantam, singular, neuter, nominative. This is what is called Samanadhikaranyam. They are in English, we don't have such a word. It is apposition. So when we chant the Taittiriya Upanishad, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Now, which is Visheshana and which is Visheshya? Huh? How do you know? How do you determine which is Visheshana and which is Visheshya? Who is to say that? Why can't I say this? This one is. Why can't I say Satya is the Visheshya? Visheshyam is Satya, and then Brahman is Visheshana. Why cannot it be like that? Who is to determine, and how are we going to determine this? How are we going to determine this, and who is going to, how are we going to do this? Why not say Jnanam is the Visheshya and Brahman is the Visheshana? How are you saying that Brahman is Visheshyam? How did you come to this conclusion? This is also an important question. And so for this we have to say, Prasiddhatvat. Prakritam Brahma. Prasiddhatvat means because we have the Brahman is famous now. Where? Don't say in the world, okay? Or in my head. That's not the answer. Brahman is famous in this sentence which has been quoted specially from the Rig Veda. Brahmavida apnoti param. And then Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. And then Brahmana Vipashchiteti. This word Brahman is already used 3-4 times. Right? The first word of the Taittiriya Upanishad, second Valli, is what? Brahman. And then the definition of Brahman also Brahman comes. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. And then Sarvan Kaman Samashnute Brahmana Vipasthita iti. So first the knower of Brahman is talked about, then Brahman itself is talked about, and how the knower and Brahman are really one is revealed at the end of this quotation, this Rig mantra, which is Amnata, which has been quoted, which has been cited. So from that we know Brahman is the one, the recipient of all the Lakshanas or the Visheshanas and the Vakyas, and that is what is Visheshya, to be qualified. It is, and the other three become Visheshanas. This is grammatically, okay? Because otherwise they are all synonyms. So if you say Satyam, it is Brahman. If you say Brahman, it is Satya. But we are not there yet. We are going very slowly and grammatically. And this grammatical angle is very important, as you will see. And so these Trini Visheshani, Visheshanarthani, we left out one sentence here. So this is what is talked about earlier. Never mind. Satyadini iti Trini Visheshanarthani padani Visheshasya Brahmanaha. That's where it is talked about as Brahman is Visheshya. I thought this sentence came later, but we skipped it. Yeah. So this is what it is. So Visheshasya Brahmanaha. This is how we say for the purpose of this. For the purpose of this sentence, this Brahman is Visheshya. Even though all of them are in apposition, which is Visheshya, because it is Prasiddhatvat. Brahmavid apnoti param. So kim tad brahma iti akanksha is there. What is this Brahman? How to understand this Brahman? Why do you say so? And therefore, Satyam, Jnanam, and Anantam, those three become Visheshanas. They qualify, they describe Brahman. So one is Prasiddhatvat, because Brahman is famous in this particular verse and well known. Second reason that is given is Vivikshatvat, meaning what is, Vivakshitatvat. Why? Because there is Vivaksha, Vaktum Ichha. The Upanishad desires to reveal Brahman, and so therefore Vivakshitatvat, because there is this desire to reveal Brahman on part of the Shruti, that's why this Brahman is Visheshya. And that's why these, that's why these sentences are, these words are, so to speak, grammatically qualifying Brahman. They qualify Brahman, and then why do they need to qualify Brahman? Because anirdharita swarupatvat. This swarupa of Brahman is anirdharitam. It is not talked about properly. It is not understood. And since it is not understood, it has to be described. It has to be elucidated. And so therefore, this Samanadhikaranyam is very much needed. And because of this, there is the understanding. There is this understanding that this is what is to be understood. Brahman is the subject matter to be understood. And then what else is there? The other three words have an adjectival function. Adjectival function. विशेषण विशेषत्वाद एव सत्यादीनि एकविभक्ति अन्तानि पदानि समानाधिकरणानि. And so these words, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Satyadini Padani, means these words, these three words. What are they? Samana Satyadini Padani. They have Samanadhikaranyam. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma, Iti, Padani, all four words here, including the Visheshya. Therefore, what? Iti Padani, why? Eka Vibhakti Antani. They are all ending in the same Vibhakti. Nominative, singular, neuter. Nominative, singular, neuter. That's why they are Samanadhikaranani. And therefore, since they are Samanadhikaranani, grammatically, they have Visheshana Visheshyatvat eva. The Visheshya, meaning that which is to be revealed, becomes the Adhikarana, becomes the locus, becomes the substantive, and everything else becomes the qualifier, Visheshana. Padanam Visheshana Visheshyatvam asti, Padarthanam. And then because of this reason, they have got what is called Samanadhikaranya. And then these three, this Satyadibhischa, Tribhihi, Visheshanaihi, Visheshyamanam Brahma, Visheshya Antarebhyah, Nirdharyate. So one word we have not seen is Visheshya Antarebhyah. And so what is that? So Brahma Nirdharyate. From what? Brahma Nirdharyate means Brahman is understood. Then of course we ask the question, understood from what? Visheshantarebhyah, from all other things that are qualified. This is the simple general rule of how substantives work, and substantives and adjectives work in grammar. This is a very interesting and very technical grammatical discussion. So, because this is how Visheshanas work. So, like for example, from all other substantives, Brahman is distinguished. By what? By these three Visheshana words like Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Otherwise it's not needed to be distinguished. But since since it is functioning as an adjective on the face of it, the surface level meaning is that it is functioning as an adjective, and so therefore what? It has a distinguishing capacity. These three words are revealing Brahman. So tribhi visheshanaihi visheshyamanam Brahma visheshantarebhyah, from all other visheshyas, from all other substantives, nirdharyate iti. Okay, now I think I got it. And then so what? Evam hi
एवं हि
tadjnatam bhavati
तज्ज्ञातं भवति
yadyad anyebhyah
यद्यद् अन्येभ्यः
nirdharitam
निर्धारितं
yatha loke
यथा लोके
नीलम
नीलं
महत्
महत्
सुगंधि
सुगन्धि
फलमिति.
उत्पलम् इति.
Yeah. So then with the Visheshanas, with the help of these words that function, that have an adjectival function, a particular substantive, here Brahman, is understood, ascertained, separated, distinguished from all other substantives. Then only evam hi, in this manner, tadjnatam bhavati, that substantive is understood. Yadyat, Anyebhyah nirdharitam, because it has been separated from other substantives. That is how it becomes known. Visheshanaihi nirdharitam Brahma. This Brahman that has been separated by these qualifying words, then jnatam bhavati. That is how it becomes known. No more is it unknown to you because you know what is Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Of course, that you have to know. What is Satyam Jnanam Anantam has to be known. And for that, vichara, inquiry has to be conducted. If you know what is Anantam Brahma, Satyam and Jnanam, then you know that all this is Brahman alone. So, therefore, evam hi tad vijnatam bhavati. This is the only way to know it. Now, how can you be so fanatical? What do you mean this is the only way to know it? People think like this. Why can't I dream Brahman? And why can't it be revealed to me? Why can't I stumble upon Brahman? You can stumble upon a pothole while walking, okay? Yeah, very possible. But you can't stumble upon Brahman because you are Brahman. The stumbler is Brahman. And then why can't I intuit Brahman? The intuitor is Brahman. And here people get very, the people say this is not, this is, how do you say that by this evam hi vijnatam tad bhavati? This is how it is understood. How can you say that with so much alacrity? How dare you say that? Because the mind is there. I can have other ways of knowing. Why can't there be other ways of knowing? And then that is why this example of Neelam, Mahat, Sugandhi, Utpalam is given. Neelam, blue, Mahat, big, Sugandhi, fragrant, lily. These words are given. Why are these words given? These words are given primarily because so that the person who has not a hard hat. Hard hat is where they have to wear some kind of a protective hat in a construction area. This person has a hard head. Okay, yeah. So nothing goes in, and what comes out is only fumes of resistance. Why can't it be like this? Why should I have to study? Why am I hair splitting here? And who cares which is Visheshya or which is Visheshana? This is not okay. And for such a person only, this whole Bhashya is made. That's why each word is, is as though Adi Shankara got a small pair of word scales and put the word there and scaled it, weighed it, and then only used it. He weighed each word. Each word is, in the Bhashya is so perfect. Evam hi tad vijnatam bhavati. This is how things are known, not just Brahman. This is how things are known by differentiating them from other things. And just because you have allergy to Brahman, you have allergy to Shastra, you have allergy to Guru, don't worry about all that. Just now think of how do you know a lotus, a lily, not lotus. Utpalam is lily. Why? Because blue is mentioned. Lotus doesn't come in blue color. Pink, white, and yes. But blue means we are talking of lily. So, blue lily is there. How do you know blue lily? Blue lily means it has to be distinguished from red lily, white lily, yellow lily, and all other, forms of lilies. Then supposing if somebody tells you, I want the big blue fragrant lily, then each word is it has a certain vyavartakatvam is there. It has a certain separating, function. And what is the distinguishing function is there? So big lily means there can be small lilies, there can be medium sized lilies, and then there are big lilies. Please bring me the big lilies. Oh, but there are so many big lilies. No, 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 the big blue lily. There are big red lilies, big white lilies, big yellow lilies, big purple lilies, but please bring me the big blue lily. Look in the blue lily category and then bring me the biggest one there is. Well, there are there are many big ones. Well, bring me the most fragrant. Then you have to use two pramanas. You have to sniff out the lilies and then pick the fragrant one and the big one and the blue one. This is how you discern things in regular life too. At that time, why do you not complain about visheshanas? Why don't you complain about adjectives at that time? This is the only way to know lily. I object. Why should I, distinguish between red and yellow and blue and all these things? You should have thought of that at kindergarten. And when the teacher said this is red, this is blue, you should have closed your ears at that time. Now it is too late to unknow this. This is how in life things are known, through separating them from things which are unlike themselves. That is how the mind works. Here, the Shruti has put a pacifier on the mind, and the Shruti is doing what the mind actually does, the everyday job. In this Laukika example of the lily, of the blue, big, fragrant lily, this is a Laukika example. In this Laukika example, what is being done here? What is being done is just the same kind of separate, categorize, separate, and know. This is how you do evam hi vijnatam bhavati. This is how things come to light. You separate in order to ascertain. You say, oh, what is special about this? Oh, that this is how it looks. That is how it is different from that. This is what the mind does. But the Shruti wants you to relax and listen. So the Shruti is being a meta mind for your mind so that you can just sit and absorb this knowledge of what this Brahman is. And therefore he says, Yatha asmin loke, yatha cha, Neelam mahat sugandhi utpalam. This is what it is. And so big, blue, fragrant lily. Among the lilies, bring the big lily. Among the big lilies, bring the blue big lily. Among the big blue lilies, bring the fragrant big blue lily. This is what I want you to find out, and then you know exactly what it is. So, in the same manner, there are three words that have an adjectival function for Brahman also. Just as we distinguish this one lily from other lilies, similarly, we have three words Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. Only up to this point we need to take that there is a Visheshana, Visheshya Sambandha, Padarthanam. Padarthanam means the meaning of the words. In order to distinguish this lily that I want to have, that is what it is. And so here, we just get to the place of what is that called? We just get to the place of taking in something. We take in the beauty of the words and we take in the beauty of how the grammar operates. And we take in the fact that the words have an adjectival function, but they are not adjectives. This we have already talked about earlier. They have an adjectival function, all right. How? Grammatically. Because grammatically, if you put one substantive, that is, that is vibhakshita, that is to be talked about, along with a few qualifiers, then this is Visheshana Vishesha Bhava Sambandha. Grammatically, one is substantive, and what are the qualifiers? They are known as adjective. But here, the adjectival function is more of a defining function, he is going to point out. The adjectival function is more of a defining function, or rather, more of a revelatory function. Why? Because how many Brahmans are there? There are many lilies, but how many Brahmans are there? One and one alone, without a second. And so, therefore, even though grammatically, from the Vyakarana standpoint, Visheshana, Visheshya Bhava is there. But the Visheshana, Vishesha Bhava, even though it is, what is that? It is important from the standpoint of Vyakarana. For us, we may just say kya karna. That's what we have to say because it is of no use for us. Vyakarana, kya karna, we have to say because now we are going into a kind of a subset of a Visheshana called Lakshana. Lakshana is also a kind of Visheshana, he's going to point out. Adjectively, I mean, it is still got an adjectival function, but it's more of a function that doesn't distinguish or separate as much as reveal or define. So this is the way in which these three words are going to be revealed, and so this is the it is even though the Neelam Mahat Sugandhi Utpalam was given as an example, that example was not given to show that Satyam Brahma as opposed to Asat Brahma, and then Jnanam Brahma as opposed to ignorant Brahma, and then what else? Anantam Brahma as opposed to dead Brahman. No, that's not what we are talking about. So the example of Neelam Mahat Sugandhi Utpalam, the big blue fragrant lily, was just given to show how everything in the world is known through adjectives. And if Brahman were to be known in some special way, which you would have even more resistance. You would have even less Shraddha. You would have even more questions and worries and fears, because this is the only way we know things in life. And so too, this way to make one comfortable with the ways of knowing. And so the same words that we have in everyday, and that we know the meanings of, are deployed. The same things are talked about so that we are comfortable and we understand. But the example of the blue big lily, fragrant lily, is not to say that there are many Brahmans and please bring the Satyam Brahma. That's not the idea. And as we have been listening, so has the Purva Pakshi. And here we have been blessed with the first Purva Paksha of this text. And what is that? Nanu. Purva Paksha means an objector. And the objector is going to ask this question. Nanu.
ननु
Visheshyam.
विशेष्यम्
Visheshanantaram.
विशेषणान्तरम्
Vyabhicarad Visheshyate.
व्यभिचरत् विशेष्यते
Yatha Neelam Raktam.
यथा नीलं रक्तं
Cha Utpalamiti.
च उत्पलमिति
यदा हि
यदा हि
अनेकानि द्रव्याणि
अनेकानि द्रव्याणि
एकजातीयानि
एकजातीयानि
अनेकविशेषण
अनेकविशेषण
योगिने च
योगिनी च
तदा
तदा
विशेषणस्य अर्थवत्वम्
विशेषणस्य अर्थवत्वं
न हि
न हि
एकस्मिन्नेव वस्तुनि
एकस्मिन्नेव वस्तुनि
विशेषणान्तरयोगात् अयोगात्
विशेषणान्तर अयोगात्
यथा असौ एकः आदित्यः
यथा असौ एकः आदित्यः
तथा
तथा
एकमेव ब्रह्म
एकमेव ब्रह्म
न ब्रह्मान्तराणि
न ब्रह्मान्तराणि
तेभ्यः विशेष्येत
येभ्यः विशेष्येत
नीलोत्पलवत्.
नीलोत्पलवत्.
This is a clever Purva Pakshi who says, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You nicely gave this Neela, Neelotpala, Mahati, and all these things, three characteristics of the lily. And there, yes, Visheshana is understood, is appropriate, is apt, because many lilies are there. And when there are many lilies, you want to say Neelam Utpalam, Raktam Utpalam iti. And then when there are, many lilies of the same color, then say, please bring the big one. This is for, festival, Ganesha festival. So let Ganesha have the big blue lily. Oh, then please bring the most fragrant one. Then only this Vyavartakam, this kind of a separation is needed. How many Brahmans are there? Ekam Brahma. Only one Brahman is there. What are you doing? It's like saying, supposing, a couple has one daughter, okay? And then some guests come to the house. Please meet my tall daughter. Does anybody say that? you know, if there's only one daughter, there's no need to say, please meet my tall daughter. Please meet my fat son. Nobody, if there's only one son, one daughter, you don't need to do that. When they meet this prakritam, this son or daughter under discussion, they will see whether the son is tall or whatever the size is, etc. They will themselves ascertain. So here there is one Brahman. And so how come you are saying this? How these Vishesh, you are wrong. This cannot, how Brahman doesn't need Visheshanas, cannot have Visheshanas, even grammatically, cannot have Visheshanas at all. You made us go through this, this whole rigmarole of grammar only for what? Just to, only for me to just push you down here. There is no, Ekam Brahma. Just like Yatha Asau Ekah Adityah. Just like there is one sun, one Brahman, sun S-O-N, okay, yeah. And so, not S-O-N, S-U-N. And so, since there is one Brahman, just like one sun, it doesn't need qualifiers. What are you doing? Are you out of your mind? Purva Pakshi asks. And what does Adi Shankara very calmly says? Na, na ayam dosha. We'll see that tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you.